Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today is Batman Day. So I'm looking at the big Batman family event collected in Batman, Night of the Owls. Way back in the now long ago days of 2011, DC Comics rebooted their entire comic book universe into the New 52, starting all their comics back at issue number 1 and bringing in a new continuity. While Batman got, as he so often does, multiple titles of his own, most of the Bat family got their own titles as well. The relevant titles that started at the beginning of the New 52 included Batgirl, Batwing, Batman and Robin, which primarily focused on Damian Wayne, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, and Red Hood and the Outlaws, featuring the reborn Jason Todd, who was the second Robin as Red Hood. But even more importantly than that, the main Batman title for the New 52, written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Greg Capullo, would introduce the world to the Court of Owls. At the start of the comic, Bruce Wayne would meet the Gotham mayoral candidate, Lincoln March, who bears a striking resemblance to Bruce, but I mean, white guys, am I right? During the meeting, they would be attacked by a crazy assassin dressed up as an owl, who Bruce was unable to defeat, but their fight threw him out the window of the Gotham version of the Space Needle. That assassin, then, would seem to simply get up and walk away from this attack, which, like, damn. Later, as Batman, he would investigate the Court of Owls that this assassin, called a Talon, said he worked for. The court was said to be just a child's nursery rhyme, but Batman not only discovers they're real, but also is captured by them and sent to wander through a labyrinth of their making to torture him for their amusement. Batman manages to defeat the same Talon and escape. When he gets home, he discovers that the Talon is none other than William Cobb, the great-grandfather of Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing, reawakened by some magical zombification process the court employs for all their Talons. It seems the court trained up their Talon assassins from Haley's Circus, and Dick Grayson was set to be the next in line. Dick doesn't initially believe Bruce, so Bruce just shows him the back of his hand for being so insolent. Actually, it's to knock loose a tooth that has the owl logo on it, just like one that had been in Cobb's mouth, but I think they really just did it because of that meme. At this point, the court decides that they need to take drastic action to take back control of the city, so they wake up all the Talons of courts past and set them loose on the city at once, thus beginning the Night of the Owls. This would then allow each Bat family member to face off against a Talon individually in issue 9 of their own books, and all of those issue 9s are what's collected here in more or less chronological order. So let's take a look at how they all dealt with their undead zombie assassins and take this away. The comic opens with All-Star Western number 9? Really? I mean, I did say chronological order, but that's taking it a bit far, isn't it? Well, way back in the Wild West, Jonah Hex and his band of ruffians and outlaws were doing a bunch of stuff completely unrelated to the Court of Owls. But this did include hunting down a man who was also, incidentally, being hunted by the court. Or more specifically, by a Talon. Hex and Amadeus Arkham accidentally interrupt the assassination, but not before the Talon manages to kill the man. She runs off, and Hex takes note that she moved like a circus performer and her dagger had an owl figure on it before the pair ride off back to Gotham. And that's as much as this issue of the comic ties into this event. If it seems randomly thrown in here, that's because it is. But the series overall actually ends up going over much of the history of Gotham, including the history of the Court of Owls, so the series after this point might actually be worth pursuing if you want to read more about the court. Anyway, we move on from there to Batwing. Batwing, the Batman Incorporated member who operated in Africa named David Zavimbe, suddenly found his opening storyline driving him from his homeland and into Gotham very suddenly, putting him conveniently in place for the Night of Owls. Cool how that worked out. Since he's in Gotham anyway, Batwing and his assistant, Matu Bob, meet up with Lucius Fox to get some upgrades for the Batsuit. While they wait for the upgrades, they attend a gala that's being hosted by Batman Incorporated. Bad night for a party though, gotta say. And of course, the party ends up being crashed by Talon Alexander Staunton, who we learn from the opening of the issue was dismissed from his service for taking too much joy from the pain he inflicted on others, to the point of drawing too much attention to the court because of it. Staunton is there for Lucius Fox because the court has decided Lucius's support of Batman Incorporated is problematic for their goals, and so they want him eliminated. Batwing and Staunton duke it out, but nothing David can throw at the Talon stops him. Eventually, the Talon grabs a visiting foreign dignitary, who just happens to also be a brutal dictator from Africa. David had earlier complained to Lucius about the man even being present at the gala, and Lucius had told David some things demand compromise. Speaking of compromise, Lucius decides it's his duty to give himself up so the dignitary doesn't get murdered, and in the brief moment that Staunton is distracted, Batwing uses some explosives intended to blow locks to instead blow the Talon's freaking arm off. Oh, damn. The dignitary thanks Batwing, excited that he was saved by the Black Batman, but Batwing, who still hates the man, responds by knocking him out and telling Lucius, "That's how we compromise in Africa." Good line, I guess, but you also just gave away your secret identity that Lucius supposedly didn't know. Oh well. Next up is Batgirl's tie-in, which is possibly my personal favorite. The history of her Talon starts with some legit history about the Japanese during World War II, building some basically hot air balloons that they used to sell bombs across the ocean to attack America with. The bombs in real life ended up doing very little damage except for a teacher and a small group of her students in Oregon who were killed by one of the bombs. But the Talon isn't the young Japanese woman writing a letter about building the bombs that serves as our opening narration. Instead, this story supposes one of those children survived that horrible attack, and because she was so horribly maimed by it, she ran off and joined the circus, Haley's Circus, where she was then groomed to be a Talon. Holy cats indeed. This Talon, whose name we only ever learn as Mary, faces off against Batgirl in this awesome spread that uses the building they're on for extra panels. So cool. The Talon easily wins the fight, but instead of killing her, simply taps her on the head and vanishes. Meanwhile, Barbara's dad, the commissioner, is being threatened by the court, who warn him to ignore the events of the night and not turn on the bat signal, no matter what. He tries to comply since they threaten to put Babs back in her wheelchair if he didn't, but as the night gets worse, he decides it's too much and goes for the signal anyway. To punish him, Mary comes for him at the GCPD, but Barbara shows up to protect her dad as new versions of those Japanese balloon bombs start going off all around them. To protect her father, Batgirl is willing to get a bit more extreme and tosses her opponent off the roof and into one of the balloons. Babs confronts the Talon as to why she didn't kill her when she had the chance, and the Talon, who can't talk, writes out a message showing solidarity. And Barbara, being the big softie that she is, would after this even invite Mary into the new 52 version of the Birds of Prey. At this point though, Gordon finally reaches the roof and throws on the bat signal, only to find that the owls had actually intended for this all along, and replaced the signal with their own. Next up, we finally get a look into what's going on with Batman. The court apparently sent dozens of Talons to kill Bruce Wayne at his manor, which is odd since they only seem to send one for everybody else they wanted dead. It's almost like they knew he was Batman, except they didn't seem to know because all the Talons start making remarks when they discover the truth. Bruce sends Alfred down to the Batcave while he deals with the owls up in the mansion, and by the time he makes his own way down to the cave, he discovers that one of the owls had already managed to make his way down there, and that Alfred is missing. Oh, wait, what's with the penny? Oh, Pennyworth was hiding behind the penny. That's a pretty good bit. Clever line, Alfred. As more owls make their way into the cave, Bruce and Alfred hide in the cave's armory. Bruce gets into a giant mech suit to fight off all the owls, while Alfred lowers the temperature in the cave because the chemical that reactivates the owls is weak against cold. He then puts out a call to all of the Bat family, warning them about the Talons and sending them the court's hit list that they got from the owl flattened by the penny. We'd already actually heard this call in the previous two stories, and we'll continue to hear it through all the remaining stories, so I'm really not sure why I didn't open this collection, but moving on, we have Robin's role in the story, which is mostly just to defend an army general whose troops are training just outside of Gotham. Robin attempts to lead the general away from the danger into somewhere defensible as the owl chases them. We also seemingly randomly cut to this young couple camping out in the woods and roasting marshmallows. I mean, I love marshmallows too, but like, bad night for a campout, I gotta say. Oh, holy shit, did the Talon just cut their freaking heads off? Damn, that's messed up. The name of this Talon we never learned, but it seems when he was alive the first time, he was supposed to kill the entire family of a spy during the American Revolution, as the spy was promised a significant land grant in Gotham by George Washington himself. The court wanted the land, so the Talon killed the family. Apparently though, he missed one of the sons, and that son's long distant descendant is US Army General Burroughs here. Thankfully though, the Talon taking a pause for story time gives Robin the chance to string him up in a tree and cut his head off. That's what we like to call karma. Next up is Nightwing's story, which opens on another Talon backstory, seeing him grow up in a Gotham divided between the rich and the poor. And he was, of course, the poor. He ended up performing on street corners to make extra money, until one day a man from Haley's circus invited him to join the circus and taught him further useful skills. As he grew up, he eventually even fell in love with the beautiful daughter of a rich man, a man who didn't approve of his daughter dating some circus boy. In the present, Nightwing rushes over to City Hall to protect Mayor Hattie from the oncoming assassins. I like how Hattie is talking to a couple other city officials and they're all being so formal to each other so that we can conveniently know who they all are. I like to imagine that all politicians always refer to each other, even in casual speak, by their title and last name. I also really appreciate Eddie Burrows' art in the Nightwing series and love some of the crazy panel breakdowns he does here, like when he has the Talon literally cut off Councilman Davis's head, and that head goes flying out of the panel. So cool. Man, this series really loves decapitations though, huh? While he's too late for Davis, Nightwing does show up just in time to save the mayor. The fight doesn't go super well for him, but he does manage to get the upper hand by shoving a sword through the Talon's eye. Ouch. Well, at least that's over, right? Oh shit, there's another Talon? Oh shit, it's Dick's great-grandpappy? Oh shit, he's the one who was telling the backstory? I did not see all that coming. Cobb's story continues into a second issue where we learn that Cobb got that girl pregnant, but when her dad refused to let them be together and married her off to a cousin, gross, Cobb went on to join the court, who declared themselves to be the gray between the black and white, or rich and poor, of Gotham. Although, really, they're just also the rich, but sure, whatever. Feeling indebted to the court, Cobb decides to go kidnap his baby son and bring him to the circus, to start a bloodline of Talons at the circus with Gray Sons of Gotham. Get it? Like Richard Grayson? Yeah, I don't really know. That's literally the explanation they give, though. Dick, still injured from fighting the first Talon and from Cobb's surprise attack, isn't able to meet the Owl in a physical confrontation. Instead, he lures him into the subway station, where he uses his knowledge of electrical systems to cut a liquid nitrogen line and spray down Cobb, freezing him again. Next up is Red Hood and the Outlaws, who face off against Mr. Freeze, since apparently he ended up working for the court to create the chemical that allowed them to revive the Talons in the first place. So now they want him dead to keep that secret safe. Freeze knows they're coming for him and built himself a giant frozen fortress to fight them off. Since that's endangering civilians, the Outlaws decide they need to get involved to not only protect Freeze from the court, but civilians from the fallout. So while Starfire and Arsenal face off against Freeze, Red Hood faces off against the Talon, where they end up bonding over their shared experience of having died and come back to life. Aw, did we just become besties? Oh, I guess not. Red Hood drops Mr. Freeze off at the GCPD, taking all the credit for Starfire and Arsenal's hard work, of course. And we also get confirmation here that Barbara switched the owl logo on the bat signal back to its regular image. At this point, we return to Batman, who is still facing off against the owls in the cave, but he manages to gain the upper hand thanks to the cooling temperatures, the bat mech he's wearing, some special batarangs that seem to be able to freeze the Talons somehow, and his giant robotic guard dog, which is the T-Rex he keeps in the cave. So that thing has a use after all. I mean, other than being there for Ninja Turtles to ride on. Once the Talons in the cave are all dealt with, Batman heads out to join the others in their fight. There's a single panel here where he talks about going to Arkham Asylum, and then in the next panel he's mentioning going for Lincoln March. And you'll know who that is if you watch the whole intro. Between those two panels, he actually does go to Arkham Asylum in an issue of Detective Comics that appears later in the collection. It sees a Talon attempting to get to Dr. Arkham, though he proves pretty capable at defending himself, even surprising the Talon with a taser. Oh, looks like Arkham was important enough to get 2 Talons. Still not as important as Bruce though, I guess. Arkham then also uses Black Mask and the Crime Lord's ability to mind control others as a distraction to keep the Talons off of his back, and Black Mask sends all the prisoners of the asylum to fight the Talons and keep them busy. Aww, Clayface looks like a dog with a toy. Batman shows up and puts down Black Mask, one of the Talons, and Arkham himself, then throws the Doctor in his car and heads back out to Gotham proper. When he gets back to town, he runs to Lincoln's office, only to be met by his real name and a gunshot. Oh, March was actually just shooting the Talon that had come to kill him, and was trying to say that he had a message for Bruce Wayne. Looks like Batman was too late to save the mayoral candidate. This Talon, who is seen for all of one panel here, gets detailed in the Dark Knight issue later in this collection. His origin was similar to Nightwing's, growing up in Haley's circus but afraid to train on the high wire. So Haley, to help him get over his fear, sets his trailer on fire to force him to face death. This tactic proves successful despite horribly burning his body, and he grows up to be an extremely skilled Talon. Because of that, he stays as Talon longer than most, but this leads to the court growing upset with him over his failing body and mind, as he makes several poor decisions in his work. After he fails to kill one of his targets, and even is spotted by Batman, the court decides it's time to retire him. This issue, I think, is largely intended to explain why Batman hasn't run across a Talon before. Apparently he has, and somehow never remembered. Also, we saw Dick Grayson being groomed as this Talon's replacement, and with him put to sleep before Dick was ready, left the court temporarily without a Talon. Back in the present, though, we see that March's headshot didn't put the Talon down, and he gets back up and attacks Batman, who responds by simply throwing the Talon out the window. The Talon splatters on the pavement, but Batman knows he's not dead, and that's confirmed for us when we see him still alive and in the sewers. And that's, I guess, the last we ever see of that Talon, which is a little weird, but okay. Also, this is our only glimpse of what Red Robin is doing on Owl Knight. I guess maybe the Teen Titans were supposed to have a tie-in issue that just never materialized. We move on from here to the Birds of Prey to see the BOP, consisting currently of just Black Canary and Katana, having trouble with their undying assassin. I do enjoy this bit that seems to be a running theme in New 52 comics, where the Talon sees them not as they are, but instead in more period-appropriate outfits for him. I freaking love that Black Canary uniform. They should just make that her regular outfit. And Starling shows up to hit him with a car, but he sees it as a horse-drawn carriage, and also sees her mostly the same, except without pants for some reason. I guess it's because her top makes him think she's a prostitute, or strumpet as he calls her, but dude, you're the one imagining her without pants, so, you know. With the help of Batgirl and a late-to-the-party Poison Ivy, they manage to force the Talon into a freezer car on a train to subdue him. The last night of the Owl story is focused on Catwoman as she plans a heist with her then boyfriend/partner, Spark. They seem to think it's a nice night because I guess they missed all the explosions and everything that happened earlier in the night. They hope to steal a knife with a decorative owl design on it, as they already stole the rest of the set, and Penguin has the last piece in his office. But before they get their chance, Penguin is attacked by a Talon, and Catwoman, against her better judgment, jumps in to save him. The Talon, it turns out, was the previous owner of the knife, and his twisted sense of honor leaves him feeling the need to collect his lost knives. Catwoman, recognizing a fellow lost soul, offers to return them, which distracts him long enough for Penguin to put a bullet in his head and put him down. Catwoman, though, identifies with the Talon and decides to leave him and the knives on the roof of the GCPD for Batman to collect. There are a couple bonus stories also collected here, one about Freeze and one about Alfred's dad, but due to various reasons, I'm not going to get into them here, so instead, let's finally get to the breakdown. Honestly, this comic should probably be annoying. Almost every story is pretty much the exact same. We see the Talon in their past life, usually including why they were retired by the court, and then we jump forward to the present where the hero in question is dealing with the revived Talon. We see that hero discover the Talon recovers from horrible wounds and that they move, specifically like Nightwing. The hero gets the call from Alfred, which is repeated in its entirety in every single tie-in, and then the Talon is brutally defeated. It's a pretty simple formula repeated, I kid you not, 7 times, and yeah, I could see you getting sick of it by then. But the various creative teams actually managed to do surprisingly different things within that remarkably strict structure, and it doesn't get nearly as tiresome as it seems like it should. Also, while the comic tries a little too hard to be brutal, especially in its obsession with decapitations, it is honestly kinda nice to see the Bat Family get to open up and use tactics they would never consider otherwise. It's also kind of cool seeing the collaboration of working out the events of one single extra crazy night. And while I do wonder where Batwoman and the Teen Titans were in all of this, especially since we see Red Robin in the main The Call story, their lack of presence here doesn't really hurt anything. So I'm giving this collection a recommendation level of high. While it might be a little confusing at first if you haven't been reading the individual comics leading up to this event, I think it's overall a great use of the various members of the Bat Family and probably the strongest crossover event for them since the start of the New 52. The collected edition gets one cool owl knife, and to make that clear, that's a good thing. I actually appreciate the way it collects the stories more or less chronologically and includes all the issues labeled as a tie-in, including the full New 52 Batman annual with the Mr. Freeze and Jarvis Pennyworth stories, which are honestly only loosely connected. It also has a bunch of bonus sketches of the Talon designs and an introduction to give you important background info. At over 350 pages, it's a hefty, worthwhile collection. The only reason you might not want it is if you're collecting all the individual series collections, which would make this collection pretty pointless. But I'd say the chances are pretty good you're not doing that. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you have a happy Batman Day. After this, I'll be getting back to my Spider-Man month with more Spider-Man reviews, though I do hope to have at least one more, hopefully a lot shorter, bonus video this month. So make sure to click that subscribe button to be here for that, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.